sharing your screen, right? Right now, instead of sharing just the.
Hello and welcome to the webinar. We'll be starting in just a few moments. We're glad you could make it today. We have an hour today to share this resource with you and to have you have a chance to dig in to these materials and learn a little bit about how you might use them in your context. So we're watching people coming in and we have another couple minutes. So send that last email or get yourself a glass of water or a cup of tea and we'll get started in just a few minutes. If you want to take a moment to introduce yourself in the chat, please feel free to do so. I see a good assortment of people in our list of attendees, but of course we don't know where you're joining us from or what your role is. So if you feel so inspired, go ahead and let us know that in the chat. And again, we'll get started in just a moment. Thanks so much for joining us. Welcome, Megan, and welcome from Richmond, Virginia, and Trish from CVCC, and Miranda from Mountain Empire Community College. I think I said welcome, Megan, but if I didn't, welcome again. And Patrick Henry, Alejandra, welcome. So glad to have all of you here today. I think we will give it just another minute and then we'll get started. So if you haven't introduced yourself and you feel so inspired, please do so, and we'll start in just a moment. Welcome, Nancy, Elena, and Deborah. Glad to have you with us today. I'm conferring with my colleagues. I think we're going to get started. All right. So once again, welcome. So glad to have all of you with us today. The goal of this hour is to introduce you to a resource that we hope you'll use for your own individual professional development, as well as in collaboration with colleagues and teams. I'm glad to see that some of you have even joined us as teams. We'll begin by providing an overview of a set of resources and then diving in more deeply into just one of the topic areas in those resources. You will have access to all of these materials, including unbranded versions of the slides. What you see here is the IES, Institute for Education Sciences, branded version of the slides, but we have also created an unbranded version of the slides that you can use as you see fit. The resource was developed in collaboration with the Virginia Department of Education by REL Appalachia, one of 10 regional educational laboratories that work in partnership with stakeholders to conduct applied research and trainings. The Regional Educational Laboratory is administered by the U.S. Department of Education Institute for Educational Sciences. And the mission of the REL program is to support more evidence-based education system, to support a more evidence-based and use of data and evidence to support decisions in education. I'm Karen Shackman, and I'm joined today by my colleague, CJ Park, both of us representing REL Appalachia, but we are not the only people involved in this project. There are several staff members whose contributions were integral to the development of the resource that you're going to see today, including Corey Hamilton-Biagas, Laura Kastner, Alia Pilchin, Carrie Friedman, Deborah Folks, Bonnie Groover, Mindy Sao, and Aina Chang. So a shout out to all of them. Emma Pellerin is with us today behind the scenes doing our technical support, and Ashley as well has been a big part of the development of these resources. You see them on the screen. We would also like to acknowledge the Improving Post-Secondary Transitions Partnership members at the Virginia Department of Education, and one of them is at the bottom of my screen right now, Sarah, who you'll be hearing from in just a bit. The State Council of Higher Education for Virginia, and the Virginia Community College Systems, all of whom helped us to develop these materials and to shape our work. So for today, our goal is to welcome you and then to introduce you to the set of resources that we've talked about and give you a sense of what's there and how you might use them. Then we're going to take a deeper dive into one of the topics, which is building a post-secondary mindset. And then we'll introduce you to the supplemental materials or resources that go along with this set of resources, and we'll wrap up. And we will hope to make this interactive. We have some presenting to do, but we'll also have an opportunity for you to kind of engage with the materials as well. Note that we will not have time to provide all the content from the set of resources today. That's not the purpose. The purpose is really just to orient you to what's there so that you can dig in on your own and figure out how you might use them yourself in the future. So to get us started, here's an activity. And for this activity, we're going to use the Poll Everywhere resource, which some of you maybe have used in the past, or if you haven't, you might think about this as something fun you could use in the future. The activity is, in one word, to think of something positive you've done to support students' post-secondary transitions during this crazy, unprecedented year. So you'll see in the chat, you can click on you can copy the link for Poll Everywhere, and you go in and pick your word, and you can actually include as many words as you want, and we'll create a word cloud of that. So go ahead in right now. I'm going to do it too. You can also text, as you can see there, to REL app 416 to text REL app 416 to the number 22333, and then you can put in your words. So take your pick about how you want to do it. And as your responses come in, we will share them with you. So I'm going to go ahead and do it. And I hope you up accessibility, great. Okay, I'm in. I hope some of you are in too. Again, thinking about one word, something positive you've done. To support students' post-secondary transition in this unparalleled, unprecedented year. And again, think about anything, something small, something big. Have you hosted a breakfast? Have you had one-on-one meetings? I see you've used Zoom effectively, provided encouragement, created opportunities. I love watching this come in. Encouragement is a big one. We can see which words are most common by how big they are. Opportunity, accessibility. I love the way it moves around. Meetings, offering meetings, and keep telling us those words. We'll just give it another minute for you to share with us some of the things you're doing in this unprecedented year to help students in the transition. Maybe someone's doing something with parents or mail, I see, texting, meetings. Meetings is a big one. Connecting, dissemination, connection, calls, connecting, connection, that's a big one. Encouraging, encouragement, calls, mail, phone, listened, that's a good one. Whoa, it's really moving. All right, meetings, accessibility, and encouragement seem to be the two biggest ones. That's great. Thank you so much. Keep those things in mind. And if you have questions of your colleagues about what they're doing, please feel free to use the chat to comment or share questions, videos. I'd be interested to know about that. Emma, I think we can move on. But before we introduce the materials and dig into them, I have the pleasure of introducing Sarah Bazemore, who is a school counseling specialist at the Virginia Department of Education and has been a partner with us throughout this work. So Sarah's going to talk a little bit about the origin of the project and how she sees it as relevant to all of you. So Sarah, take it away.
Thank you so much. I am thrilled to be here, and I promise not to talk for long because I am certainly not the main event, but I appreciate the opportunity to greet those that have joined us, as well as to offer greetings from Dr. Lane. You know, this really aligns so nicely with the vision of the Virginia Department of Education when we talk about the importance of maximizing the potential of all learners. What we are saying there is not just maximizing their potential while they're within our school building or virtual school building, but also maximizing their potential as they head off into whatever post-secondary pathway they should happen to choose. That is part of you know, what we are speaking to when we talk about maximizing their potential. And what I love about the resources that you're going to be hearing about today is that they were really created to meet specific needs within school buildings around post-secondary pathways and how to really bridge that gap. And while we were discussing these resources, what I thought was great was that it wasn't just about what needs to go in them, but also about the format that these resources need to be presented in to make them easy for folks to use and digestible and really user-friendly. So I thought that was a nice perk to this resource, that it wasn't just something that was going to be handed to you, but you were going to have to navigate through and really struggle with finding what you needed. It's organized in a way that I think is really user-friendly, and it's going to make it be something that you can access and deliver quickly and seamlessly. So we're really hoping that the resource can be used by educators and, you know, everything from career counselors to teachers to really help create a school culture that connects directly to post-secondary education, but we're not limiting that to 4-year programs, but really any post-secondary pathway. We continue to work together to create resources that really foster that warm handoff from high school to post-secondary so that our students really do feel supported all the way through. Because we know that our responsibility does not end when they cross that stage. We have to aim to ensure that students have that opportunity, the knowledge, and the resources to pursue their passions after graduation. So without further ado, I am thrilled to pass the virtual floor over to REL Appalachia and for them to share a little bit more about this wonderful resource. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Sarah. That's great. Sarah's been a real partner with us, helping us think about not only what should be in the materials and how we should design them, but how we should get them out to the field. And one of the ways we're doing that is this webinar today. So now let's tell you a little bit about what these resources are. So who's it for? So this compilation is intended for a wide variety of audiences, including school counselors, school administrators, college access providers, case managers, secondary teachers, and others, all who support students post-secondary transitions. And like Sarah said, not only to traditional 4-year institutions, but to all kinds of post-secondary opportunities. The materials in this resource are based on a series of national webinars that the REL Appalachia Improving Post-Secondary Transitions Partnership delivered over the last couple of years, with the addition of activities and resources as requested by the partnership members in Virginia. The idea of this resource, how it might be used, is both for individual professional learning and or for training and team learning. So that is that in terms of individual learning, school counselors might pick up the slide decks and the related materials and review them and engage in personal reflection and personal learning, or it could be used as a training and learning tool for practitioners to use together to deliver workshops and so forth. So it's really designed to be a both and. So what's included? There are 4 slide decks with talking points, facilitator notes, and references. That's kind of the heart of the work. The slide decks are available in PDF format with this IES branding that you see here, but they're also available in an unbranded format, so you could pick them up and deliver them as you see fit. And that will make it possible for you to use it with professional development and so forth. There are other items included here, which we think of as a supplementary resources, and CJ will talk through with you what some of those are. So what's covered, there are 3 substantive topics that we cover, as you see here: college knowledge, transition nuts and bolts, and post-secondary mindset. CJ is going to provide you with an overview of these 3 topics. Now, CJ, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Karen. So as she said, I'm going to walk you through the resources and give you a sense of how you can use the decks and how you might integrate them with the supplemental materials. The resource includes 4 slide decks, each of which includes talking points, facilitator notes, and references. Basically everything you need to use this with others or on your own. The first deck addresses the importance of post-secondary transitions. This deck really introduces the whole series and provides the rationale and some relevant statistics about why supporting post-secondary transitions is critical. Then we have 3 content-rich interactive decks. The first is laying the foundation for post-secondary success, and this deck includes strategies for exposing students to the structures, norms, and expectations of college, as well as strategies for building their career goals. The second is about supporting students with the nuts and bolts of post-secondary transition. And this deck focuses on how to support students in the process of post-secondary selection, application, financial preparation. And finally, the last deck, building a post-secondary mindset, focuses on the social emotional skills that prepare students for a successful transition. We will dive a bit deeper into this last deck and do a sample activity to model how you might use the deck as a professional development tool. So what's in this introductory deck? So the introductory deck is designed to provide, as I said, rationale for the focus of the whole resource. And it's much shorter than the other decks, but includes some useful statistics that really set up why the work you all do is important. And we'll show you a few slides from this deck. So this slide from the introductory deck provides important terminology for the entire resource. So this graphic shows how we're thinking about college and career readiness and post-secondary transitions. So college and career readiness refers to the knowledge and skills students should have at the end of high school to be successful in whatever post-secondary pursuits they might have. And post-secondary success occurs when students complete their training with the knowledge and skills necessary to be successful in the workforce and community. And in the middle, in that bridge portion, post-secondary transition refers to the process of moving from high school to college or whatever post-secondary pursuit they might be doing. And supporting students in that transition really begins in high school and kind of doesn't end, as Sarah mentioned, at the school door. It includes supports in high school like counseling and navigating financial aid applications. It includes supports like early post-secondary, such as college orientation, and everything in between that helps students make the leap, like summer bridge programs. So as I mentioned, several of the slides in the introductory deck provide statistics that help make the case for why we need to focus on these non-academic components of the transition. And this is one example. So here you see that in order to improve persistence, we need to know why students are not attending post-secondary institutions. And this chart shows that financial and personal reasons, such as not being able to afford college and manage the experience, are the biggest causes of students not enrolling or completing post-secondary degree programs. So some of these barriers are not really academic, and that's really what this deck focuses on. Before we continue, I just wanted to take you a little bit behind the scenes of the previous slide so that you can see what the slides look like to the presenter. So on arrow 1, on the notes for each slide, we provide bulleted talking points that provide a script. They are quite detailed, so anyone could pick up the deck and present from the materials provided here. And then on arrow 2, you see when we cite research, the full reference is included in the notes for the specific slide as well. And we'll add a hyperlink to the resource when possible. That's a real emphasis of the REL's work, is really having evidence-based and research-based strategies. So now that I've given a little bit of an introduction to the content for that first deck, and you have a sense of what's included, we're going to go briefly through the other 3 decks, spending the most time, as I mentioned earlier, on that last deck. We've been advised that at this point in the year, learning a little bit about post-secondary mindset might be of immediate use to some of you. And then we'll go on to talk about the supplemental materials that support all the content in the decks. So each of the 3 longer decks opens up with an agenda, meeting goals, and an opening activity. And the opening activity is really designed to warm people up, get them thinking about the topic, how it relates to their work experiences. Then there's a brief summary of the research evidence related to whatever topic we're talking about, followed by practical research or evidence-based strategies. And then there's time at the end of each deck to wrap up and do some action planning. So each deck provides an overview of the topics covered along with talking points for framing like you see here. So laying the foundation, the first of the 3 longer decks focuses on the importance of post-secondary knowledge, which research suggests is useful in supporting students in that transition. And so in this deck, we discuss college norms, expectations, the importance of understanding the kinds of majors that lead to certain careers, into students understanding those pathways. We provide ideas and resources for supporting students in investigating possible majors and related to careers of interest. This is an example of an activity, and this activity from slide deck A is an example of the kind of opening activity we would include. As we said, these opening activities are designed to help people start thinking about the content that would follow. In this example, a person working through the resource alone or with a partner could complete the activity, or it could be done as part of a larger discussion. And the talking points are always there for any activity that we have. Facilitator notes are provided to kind of give direction about how you might facilitate the activity. And we're going to move on to the next deck, but remember that each deck leads with an activity and then moves on to the relevant research and practical strategies. Slide deck B really focuses on nuts and bolts. And I'll provide a description of that in the next slide. So similar to the prior deck, we start off with an introduction. In this deck, we're focused on the non-academic nuts and bolts of post-secondary transition. Specifically, we focus on 3 areas: selection, application, which includes completing the appropriate entrance exams and assessments, and then financial supports. This slide shows the topics as somewhat discrete, but we all know that they're overlapping, considering where to apply and applying are all wrapped up in some financial considerations. But we cover each of the topics separately. One critical topic, which is probably on all of your minds right now, is for which there's a lot of research and resources, is FAFSA completion. And this particular slide deck starts with some statistics on the topic, just setting up why it's so important. For example, as the 3rd bullet point indicates, students are really leaving money on the table. And I'll just give you a minute to kind of read over some of these statistics. So we can go on to the next slide. So we provide a number of suggestions in the deck about actions you can take to support students to complete FAFSA applications. And we share some useful resources related to tracking FAFSA data. A few of these are on the slide. For example, the US Department of Education has resources, including more up-to-date data, timelines, other resources, and then probably most of you are familiar with NCAN, and they have a range of additional resources, including data displays that track FAFSA completion in your state or district, and other resources. Feel free to consult the nuts and bolts deck for more information on these topics. Now we'll move on to the final slide deck in the resource, and Karen will take that on.
Great, thank you, CJ. So as we said, we had heard that there was a particular interest in learning a little more, or there might be at this time of the year a particular interest in thinking about the post-secondary mindset, or the kind of social and emotional skills that are necessary for kids to make the transition and be successful. So we want to walk through in a little more detail
Okay, it looks like Karen froze, so I'm going to take over while Karen gets back online. Sorry about that technical difficulty. I will be right. Let me just pull up the slides that Karen had.
I'm so sorry, technical difficulties. I appear to be back. Can you see? Okay.
I was about to take over for you, but if you're back, we'll let you continue on.
Okay, if I go again, please take over for me. I don't know what happened. I apologize. But anyway, so what we want to do is dig into this in a little more detail, and then have you have a chance to do an activity. So very first thing is have a look at the agenda. Here on the agenda, you'll see, as always, we start with a welcome and an overview. We provide kind of a framework for what's included, some definitions. Then we go into 3 topic areas within this post-secondary mindset idea. And they are growth mindset, academic self-efficacy, and school culture. And then we have the application of learning, which it gets at some of the supplemental activities that, that you will see momentarily. So without further ado, we want to dig into the activity. So first we'll do this activity, and then we'll show you the facilitator notes so you can see how you might do this in person or remotely. We have provided a link to a shared Google Doc in the chat. I'm just confirming you can see it. And that will allow you to go to that Google Doc. And then there are 2 questions in the Google Doc. One is, what challenges did you face in your post-secondary experience? And the other is, what skills and resources did you bring to your post-secondary experience that enabled you to succeed? And the idea there is to start from your own experience. And that's kind of the way we approach each of these opening activities, is to start from where you are, what your experiences are, and then build out from there. So with that, again, you'll see that if you'll click on the link for the Google Doc, the bit.ly link, you'll see there. And I can see people are starting to put in their experiences. So let's take a pause and let folks write in their own experiences. So first, what challenges did you face in your post-secondary experience? Lack of experience, financial challenges, lack of understanding of the college culture, lack of direction, financial again, absolutely no idea what to do, the whole thing, college application process, tests, the whole thing, time management, that's a big thing for many kids, especially kids who are working part-time, or more than part-time and trying to do the college application process or the post-secondary exploration. Time management, we said, learning how to study, lack of direction. So that's a lot of challenges there. We see financial come up a number of times, family upheaval, again, time management, financial aid. So some common themes we see there. And then if we look at the the second question about how you managed it, what did you do, or what enabled you to be successful, we see older siblings, tutor support, family support, good academic base, study skills, time management. So there's sort of the flip side of some of these: persistence, asking questions, having the courage, or finding contact info for people. I think about that, having the courage to ask questions with my own teenager sometimes, and how much I have to push him to ask his teachers when he doesn't understand something, because it's so embarrassing. Am I still connected? Yes, I'm seeing a couple people saying they're getting disconnected, but I think on my end, everything is good. So I'm going to keep going. If anyone is having any difficulty, I would suggest maybe logging out and log back in, or close any other apps you might have open on your computer. So persistence, perseverance, family support, time management, executive functioning kinds of skills. We see those things coming up. Bravery, courage, being willing to ask questions, talk to professors, put yourself out there. So I think, Emma, we can stop and go back from here. But we can definitely see that there were some themes that emerged. So what we want to do now is show you these notes. So the way we would do this activity would vary based on if we were doing it in person or if we were doing it virtually like this. And in our facilitator notes, we try to provide you with options depending on your circumstances. And we try to be as explicit as possible, so that those questions about, wait, like, how many minutes do I need for this? And how do I group people? We kind of try to take away the mystery of that for you and give you some clear guidance about how you might use this in a training or workshop of some kind. And so that just illustrates that. And as CJ has shown you before, all those things are in the notes for these slide decks. Okay, so now that we've done the activity and you've all shared your thoughts about it, you're going to see here themes that that there are common themes here from the research that are things that you said as well. So we've talked a bit, or you've had an activity where you've talked a bit about the barriers, but we want to share, and this is in the deck, and we do this with kind of each of the slide decks. We share kind of what does the research say about this. So here is kind of a summary of a body of research about what are the barriers to successful student transitions to, to post-secondary options. And many of the things you see here are reflected in the kinds of things you said. So lack of confidence, that came up, or just a complete lack of understanding. Well, let me just start with lack of confidence. So, students who choose direct entry into the paid workforce instead of pursuing post-secondary education may do so because they perceive too many obstacles and do not feel confident in their abilities to obtain post-secondary education. So that idea is that students just don't believe they have it in them, which relates very closely to this idea of the post-secondary mindset. In addition, geographic isolation, particularly among rural students, this can lead to decreased opportunities for learning about post-secondary education, as well as limited resources and career choices. Related to this is localism, or the idea that a strong connection to where students live might keep them in the region, which might reduce their opportunities for post-secondary education. Again, something that may be more relevant to rural students. Family culture or family obligations can serve as a barrier. Having a strong connection to family is a wonderful thing, and sometimes these obligations can lead to students not pursuing post-secondary opportunities. A lack of college knowledge, that came up, several of you said things about just not knowing. Students may not understand what options exist, what's required, how to navigate the system, what the expectations and norms are, what institutions can offer them, and many other aspects of going into college or pursuing additional credentials. So just a lack of knowledge. And again, these resources are designed for that. Just two more things: low levels of family education, or low levels of family educational expectations or family involvement in the student's experience of transitioning can have an impact. And of course, last but certainly not least, are the financial considerations. All right. So as this slide deck focuses on post-secondary mindset, or the social emotional skills that support a successful transition, we draw on the CASEL framework to support our presentation of the material. Some of you may be quite familiar with the CASEL, or Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning. They're kind of a premier organization when it comes to social emotional learning. I'm just checking. I see there's a hand raised. College partying is being in the way. Well, that didn't come up in the research, but again, the research is also referencing kind of the barriers to entry as opposed to what might happen as a result of being in school. So it wasn't really focused on persistence. It was sort of focused on that transition into. So I don't know if there exists research on the impact of excessive partying on students' experiences. So thank you for adding that. I am going to just talk a little more about social emotional learning here. 5 competencies in the pie wedges in the inner circle here represent groups of skills related to effective social and emotional functioning. The 3 outer layers in blue represent the settings in which students can develop these skills: home and communities, schools, through school-wide policies and practices, and the classroom. So you see here kind of what are the skills and where do they get them. CJ, I'm continuing along. Is there anything coming up in the chat I should? Okay, great. So our focus in this deck is on things you can do with students in the context of the school or in the classroom. While there are many things, obviously, that are out of the control, there are many things we can't control that are in the community. They're out of our control if we're working in schools and classrooms. We as educators do spend much of the year with students in school, in counseling sessions, in career exploration, among other ways that counselors, educators, administrators engage with students. So this can all have a big influence on students' social and emotional preparedness. However, we also want to note the important role that families and communities play in promoting these competencies as well, including through school-driven family engagement and through through school and community partnerships. Educators are sometimes concerned about student attitudes and beliefs related to post-secondary transitions and persistence. The concerns we've heard are that students give up too easily, they don't set goals, they don't believe they can achieve post-secondary success. And these potential pathways through which educators and counselors can address these areas of concern fall into the orange cells here on the CASEL wheel. Self-awareness first is this topic addresses the psychological barriers such as low self-efficacy. Self-awareness refers to students' sense of themselves, and it can be built up so that they can perceive themselves as worthy of further education and able to achieve academic and professional success. They can then recognize and mobilize their own strengths rather than focusing on weaknesses, real or perceived weaknesses, and increase their self-confidence and self-efficacy so that they are motivated to pursue post-secondary education. So that's that first bucket of self-awareness. And then self-management relates to the skills students need to get things done once they have the self-awareness competencies. It includes managing the stress that accompanies any major decisions and process, such as leaving home and pursuing post-secondary education. Self-motivation to investigate and pursue options, setting realistic and ambitious goals, and having the organizational skills to follow through with the process of pursuing post-secondary education. And that many of you in your comments cited either as a barrier or one of the ways that you were successful, some of these kinds of self-management skills. These are not the only areas of social and emotional learning where educators can influence students and post-secondary transitions, but it is where we are focusing our discussion in this slide deck today, or this is kind of in this slide deck where we focus our attention. So within the categories of self-awareness and self-management, the deck covers 3 areas here: growth mindset, academic self-efficacy, and school culture. Today, we're just going to focus on growth mindset to show you kind of how we cover that one topic. But of course, we hope you'll dig in and look at how we cover all 3 of these topics in the materials. Supporting students to develop a growth mindset is a part of addressing their social and emotional needs and building their post-secondary minds. As we have said, our goal Thank you. As we have said, our goal is to focus on practical strategies based on research and concrete things that you can do. In the following slides, we're going to provide some research-based approaches related to growth mindset to support post-secondary transitions. So again, we start with the definitions, we talk about what's included, and then we want to get pretty quickly into what are the strategies, what are some of the things that you can do. So we'll show you that to you here. So for each, so there are two strategies we present related to building a growth mindset in students: praising the process and teaching students their brains can grow. So let's take a pause here. I was debating whether or not we have time. I think we have a couple minutes and could use a little chat time. Think about your work with students and consider when you have praised the process. So again, look at the definition here, praising the process. Are there times when you've observed student performance or effort and commented on it? What's the kind of language that you use to help build a growth mindset? So go ahead and put some comments in chat there, thinking about your role. If your role is as an educator, if your role is as a counselor or support professional to students as they're making the transition, what are some ways and language you've used to think about praising the process and encouraging their sort of growth mindset? Or even the second idea about malleability. So I'll pause there and let folks say something about some ways that they have thought about praising the process. Observing how a student is perhaps encouraging, praising a student using their planning muscle. I like that. They're exercising their planning muscle. Planning muscles take time to build. I'm learning with my teenage son. Anyone else? Anything else about solving problems, completing tasks? Tell students I'm proud of their work and accomplishments. That's great. Thinking about that transition time and your role as counselors, is there anything else folks would add? Be positive, focus on what they're doing well, what they're getting right, acknowledging their effort. Well, keep jotting down your thoughts as we proceed. We have just a few more slides here, so let's go to the next slide. So again, we talked about praising the process, but then for each of these strategies, we provide some suggestions or examples, practical strategies and resources. So what you see here, for example, is that you can teach students that intelligence is malleable. That's one of the key strategies. And that with effort and the right strategies, they can take on challenging tasks. So you'll see here that we've provided some concrete tools or resources that you can use. There are two links here to videos that you could watch with students that talk about the malleability of the brain. And then a suggested activity that you could do with them, having them write a letter to their future selves, helping them to think about how they might deal with struggling with a class in college. I really like that idea. So again, we try whenever possible to provide some concrete ideas, strategies, however small, that you might implement in your own context. So that's just a little bit of a taste of what you can expect when you dig into the decks and what the materials are, but that's not all. So I'm going to pass it to CJ now, who's going to talk to you about the range of supplemental materials that we have that run alongside these 4 slide decks. CJ.
Thanks, Karen. So we provide a set of supplemental resources and materials that are, really meant to kind of extend the learning from this deck and make it kind of a little bit more hands-on and practical. There are 4 main parts to these additional resources and materials. We provide strategy handouts, and they align with the 3 decks we just talked about. We also have a set of student scenarios, and I'll show you examples of both of those. And finally, we have an action planning template and a set of Virginia-specific resources aligned to the content covered throughout this resource. So this is a snippet of the handout summarizing strategies. For each of the slides or workshops, we have a handout that starts with the strategies discussed in the workshop or the slides, and then extends to possible practical applications. So for example, here, the strategies invite college representatives to your school. There's a description of what that is, and then some possible applications. And we have that for all the strategies. And it's really meant to be a jumping off point for planning, helping practitioners like yourselves to think about how to practically implement them, these strategies that are derived from research. Next, we have 3 student scenarios, and they were developed in collaboration with practitioners and used in several previous REL Appalachia workshops. The scenarios are 3 different 2-page narratives describing a student's family, academic, and social background, and the context of the scenarios aligns nicely with the kinds of issues presented in these decks. The scenarios are really designed to prompt discussion, and they've been really fun and engaging activities when we've done them in in-person workshops. Within the scenarios, there is a note-taking tool and discussion questions, and we'll bring that up right now. So here is an example of the student scenario. So this is the introduction. There's a little section about academic preparation, a little section about social emotional preparation of the student, her logistical preparation, financial preparation, just like what does she know already? What are her strengths? And then for each of them, there's kind of this template for you to take notes and say kind of how are they doing on each of these content areas? So post-secondary knowledge, post-secondary nuts and bolts, or post-secondary mindset. So depending on what slide deck you're working in or what content, you can go through these scenarios 3 different times. And then these are some discussion questions so that either whether you're working alone or if you're doing this in a group, that might help guide some of that discussion. So we also have Virginia-specific resources that are aligned to the content of the 3 decks. For example, the Center for Transition Innovations has a YouTube channel, which provides a series of short videos on a variety of subjects, including the differences between high school and college, the types of post-secondary options, college entrance requirements, admission policies, and then goal setting and action planning. And these are resources that we've linked to the different content of the decks. There's also Virginia Education Wizard, which provides support for navigating post-secondary pathways, including career assessments and test preparation. We also link to the opportunities preparing for college guide and workbook. And then we also link to some student profiles by CTE cluster, which provide young people with examples of different careers they might pursue. And these are all resources that are available through Virginia. At the end of each workshop, we have this slide, and this is really kind of, we want people to spend some time integrating this learning into their own goals for improvement. So we created these additional supports in the deck to help people with planning and implementation. So we have a planning template to help individuals and groups be concrete about how they might apply the ideas from today and to make a plan for it. I think we'll show that to you right now. So the action planning document looks like this. So we have an example of how you might fill it out. So you have a model. So there's action steps, who's responsible, approvals, those types of things. And then we also have a blank version. And we have a version, a fillable PDF version as well that we that'll be posted as part of our resources. So to wrap up, so we really appreciate you spending time with us today. We shared a lot with you, and we really hope that you take some time to kind of look at these resources and that they're really valuable and helpful for you all in your work. Have some time left for some Q&A if anyone has any questions, burning questions for us. And while I'm waiting for the questions, I think we'll also maybe put in the chat what we need from you to help us is we have a survey to help us grow and learn from what you all are doing today, from what we shared with you all today. And so we'll put that in the chat so that you can fill it out. We really need your feedback to make sure that the work we do meets your needs, and it's really helpful to us. And so we really, really appreciate it. So what is the YouTube channel that you mentioned? So there are links in the resources to YouTube videos. There's the Center for Transition Innovation, which I believe is based at ECU. I could have that wrong, but they primarily do work on transitions with students with disabilities, but they also have a lot of resources that could be useful for a broad range of students. I think the other set of videos, and I don't think this is a YouTube channel, at the VDOE website, there's some videos of students who went through different kind of career technical pathways and kind of what their career trajectories were. And so we've linked to that in our resources. And so we'll put the link to the resource compilation in here, and links to all of those resources that we shared should all be in there.
CJ, I just wanted to say that we had a question early on about how do I get access to the resources, and we had sort of held off because we wanted to show you kind of what to expect, but we've now put the link in the chat, so you can find that link to all the resources we've talked about today in the chat.
Yep, I just dropped that in there. So if you go to that resource, if you scroll down, there's a first set of PDFs of the materials. And then, as Karen had said, downloadable PowerPoint slides decks that are for trainers so that you could, actually present them or modify them if needed.
We hope you'll take these materials and use them, and we're eager to know how you use them. So if you do pick them up and use them and share them with your colleagues in training or for personal professional development, you can drop us an email or let Sarah know. We just love to know they're out there and being used and how they're being used. That would be a great, it would be great for us to know as we share them with others, how all of you have picked them up and used them yourselves. We're glad folks found this informative and helpful. And again, the main idea here is for you to take these resources yourself. But CJ, I think if there are no more questions, you can, oh, how will the survey come up? Well, there's a link to the survey in the chat now, but then you can also click on the link in the slide, or when the meeting ends, it will take you directly to the survey. So you have many ways to answer our survey today. So thank you very much. Okay, CJ, take it away.
Okay, so yeah, I think our last slide is just a big thank you for joining us here today and spending your time with us. I know it's a busy time of year for folks in the role that you are all in supporting students with that transition and thinking about post-secondary. And for a little bit more information about REL Appalachia, you can find information on this website, email relappalachia@sri.com if you have questions, or follow us on Twitter if you want to hear more about our events or other things we might be doing. So we really appreciate you all. You've been a great group, and really appreciated all the responses and interaction we have with you today. So take care.
Thanks very much. And thanks again, Sarah, for helping make this happen.